Thanks for tuning into another edition of Another Dolphins podcast. Joshua Houtz, we have been doing this show for so long. We spent the entire offseason preparing for the 2024 season. We are still hearing the analysts say, I don't think the Dolphins are a strong football team. They can't beat good football teams. How does it feel knowing that in 3 days, we're going to finally start to get some answers?
It feels wonderful. It is that time of the year, Jake. We finally get football back, and we're going to get some answers to the questions. I don't know if they'll come right away in week 1 against the Jaguars, but, the beginning of the season, a lot of answers will be resolved. So stoked that we are finally here. I mean, it feels like a marathon. We finally made it. Football is upon us. How are you been doing, Jake? Been a busy week, long week. How are you doing?
Busy week. I wrapped up I have one final fantasy draft tonight, then we are done. A story for another day, but I actually went to a fantasy draft this weekend. I arrived with the 2nd overall pick and a 3rd round pick someone traded me and a 4th round pick someone traded me. Let's just say I left that draft with the 5th pick and none of those picks from previous years. Moral of the story, sometimes it's better to keep the league happy instead of take things your own way, take your ball and go home. But that, Josh, I'd love to get into that sometime. But I have a question I just want to throw right at you, right from the top. The Jaguars had had an opportunity to make the playoffs last year. They finished the year 9-8. They kind of pooped their big boy pants, if you will, the final week of the season. Entering 2024, we just saw Trevor Lawrence get absolutely paid. Doug Peterson, they have a really established unit there. Are the Jacksonville Jaguars considered a good football team?
I think they are. I mean, from my perspective, I believe so. I still think Trevor Lawrence has not quite, reached that pinnacle. Everybody crowned him before he was even drafted. He's not quite there yet. We know Doug Peterson brought a Lombardi trophy to the city of Philadelphia, so he's a very good coach. And they have so many different pieces, as we'll talk about. The defensive line has some core pieces. Brian Thomas is a guy in the receiving core that, Mike McDaniel just continues to rave about. So I want to say they're a good team, but, I mean, they're probably going to finish with, 6 wins at the end of the year, and everyone's going to play that quote and we're all just gonna sit here and laugh. But as of now, I think they're pretty good. What about you?
Doesn't it kind of feel like, in a weird way, like the Chargers game last year, where these are two teams, and I don't want the Dolphins to be on the same page as the Chargers. This is a team that has struggled the last few years. Obviously, you have John Harbaugh coming in, but it seems like these are one of those games that it's early in the year and you kind of are going to forget about it come November and December, but it's going to be so important when we start talking about matchups. And God, I'd love to see the Dolphins win the division, but if we're talking about wild card matchups, this Jacksonville Jaguars game, man, I think it's going to mean a lot, not only for early in the season gaining that confidence, but farther down the road when we're trying to crunch the numbers, if you will.
Yeah, and I mean, we all talk about how important it is for the Dolphins to finish strong, but I think a lot of these early games, like you mentioned, are going to have playoff implications as well. So definitely can't overlook the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I think what's so mysterious about this game, as is any week 1, right, is you're coming into this with new, each coordinator's trying to show different things and, use their different personnel that they've acquired. You hear Doug Peterson say they don't even know what Anthony Weaver's going to be throwing at them. So the teams are going to be much different towards the end of the year, but you're right, man. At the end of the season, it could be down to the Jacksonville Jaguars and Dolphins for one of those, super wild card spots. And we would hate for a week 1 loss to Trevor Lawrence and company to come back and bite us. But I am reminded, Jake, of freaking Urban Meyer, man, beating Brian Flores that season. Unbelievable. We won't even talk about that.
The craziest thing, I don't know why I did this, dude. I went back and watched that game in London where the Dolphins were 1-4, the Jags were 0-5. That last drive, Brian Flores was doing blitzing. Brian Flores was doing the Vic Fangio defense. He was doing the prevent D. Like they were sitting there, like, yeah. Even the announcers were talking about, like, it went over their head. They're like, yeah, one more play here for Trevor Lawrence to throw it downfield. There's 5 seconds left. He's at the 50-yard line. He gets the easiest curl route in the world. He gets the ball, gets the timeout with 2 seconds, dude. I can't even complete a sentence. I'm so triggered about it. Why did you do this to me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's these theories that, like Brian Flores maybe was sabotaging to it. Like, could have he been playing prevent so Tua didn't have that epic comeback? I mean, now we're Pepe Silva at the board. But, dude, that was just such a horrible time. And I think it was literally Urban Meyer's only win other than, we got caught.
Oh, that was it. That was the only one.
Unbelievable.
What's up, baby? That is the craziest thing of the whole Brian Flores era. And that was the first game where, like, I started to put so much more stock into injury reports because that was like the first time the Dolphins, I think that was the first game where Xavier Howard was listed with groins as his injury, not just groin, but plural. switching focus here to get us back on track, Josh, you mentioned, first year coordinators trying to set the tone, make their mark. Anthony Weaver had an opportunity to be a defensive coordinator. This is his second chance after spending a few years with the Baltimore Ravens, and this is a great opportunity. Pretty boy Trevor Lawrence, right? This stout offense. You have a great back in Travis Etienne. This Jaguars offense is no joke. And if Anthony Weaver can go out there and really cook up something special, it'd be a great first day reaction. However, we're recording this on Wednesday, Josh, and Mike McDaniel has been non-committal about the availability of Jalen Ramsey. Apparently, he wasn't practicing much going back to their joint practices with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, man, I love the idea of this defense. I think we both understand that it's going to take time. It's not going to be like that Baltimore Ravens game in 2019, but man, this defense with or without Jalen Ramsey, night and day.
Absolutely night and day, and that's another fun thing about this. We want to see what Anthony Weaver can show in his first, debut with the Miami Dolphins. He's dying to show what he can do, right? I think he had a stint with the Houston Texans where they ranked towards the end of the league as they were that bad and dismal. He had some head coaching opportunities this off season. So he definitely wants to prove that he belongs. But you mentioned some of those players. And I think, for guys like Kendall Fuller, who was cast aside by his previous team, we mentioned Jalen Ramsey, whether he's here or not, which I am a little queasy about that, but he's going against the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? His previous team, David Long, Jordan Brooks, some new faces, obviously not David Long, but you know what I mean? There's some different faces that we want to see how they fit in Miami and in this defense. So stoked for it, but I absolutely am a little bit queasy hearing that Jalen Ramsey, from based on what Mike McDaniel said, it just sounded like one of those things where, he could play and he couldn't. And at this point in the week, that's not what you want to hear. And we're talking about this now. An injury report might drop at any moment. So maybe we'll see questionable or whatever, but a little bit queasy for sure.
The moment it will drop, actually, Josh, is the moment we finish this podcast. I recorded with Dustin Godin yesterday. We talked a lot about the offensive line and Miami's plan there. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out. But dude, I was trying to, kind of talk him off the cliff. There was some concerns about getting rid of Jack Driscoll and what it meant to the offensive line. I was like, it's no problem. He hasn't even been signed yet. I actually hit end recording and he signs to the Philadelphia practice squad. So my bad about that one. That's probably when it will drop. And Josh, I would love to see Ramsey take the field. He missed the first 9 games last year. Would you consider this a revenge game? I mean, I think that entire franchise has been turned over so many times. He's the 5th overall pick in the 2016 draft. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler with the Jags, All-Pro in 2017. He was with the Rams when they beat the Jags 37-7. But I feel like there's so much more at stake here than that Jaguars team in 2021. Kind of a joke. Rams beat them 37-7, and I just want to circle back to that was the same team that beat Brian Flores.
Woof, woof, woof. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not necessarily a revenge game, but, when you kind of started at the beginning of this pod with how this game could have playoff implications later down the road. I mean, for Jalen Ramsey, for the Miami Dolphins, it might be, it might mean a little bit more to him. So I'm just hoping that he's out there. I mean, Ugly Ricky, I know Pretty Ricky was the NFL insider there for a little bit. Ugly Ricky was kind of hitting that maybe Jalen Ramsey's going through some contract talks. So again, do not take that with a grain of salt, but whatever it is, we need Jalen Ramsey out there because this defense is much different with Jalen Ramsey on the field. And the same can be said about another guy that Mike McDaniel touched on today, another Jalen. We have 17 of them on the roster. Jalen Phillips is going to be on a pitch count. And you mentioned how intriguing this defense is. We do have to remember, a lot of these guys, some of these guys are coming back from injury. We're not going to see Jalen Phillips, the same Jalen Phillips week 1 that we saw last season at certain points of the year. But that's what we want to build to. So I am intrigued that he's saying that they're on a snap count. And it also made me think with his quote that they're right. They do play the Bills 4 days after this or whatever it is. So, whether it's Jalen Ramsey, whether it's some of these other guys, they might be on a pitch count just for the very fact that they're going against an AFC East, their rival, the Buffalo Bills 4 days later. So what are your thoughts on Jalen Phillips, Jake? Any surprise there?
Dude, this is such a tough dynamic for the Dolphins, for Mike McDaniel to consider. The start of the season, you have games within 4 days of each other. That is absolutely insane. And you do wonder, you got that mini bye week right after that where you will have roughly 10 days off. Will we see Jalen Phillips only play 15-20% of snaps? It kind of seems like that might be where we are headed. But Josh, I do wonder, I actually don't wonder, because I was going to say, like, should Miami really focus in and like consider week 1, week 2? It's early in the year, but these are your AFC opponents. These are the games that are going to impact divisions, wild card matchups. Do you really want to like? And I don't even want to say conservative, because you do need to play it relatively safe with these players that are going to be impact players all year round. But at the same time, man, like knowing that bye is coming in the future, do you think that maybe Mike McDaniel will hold a few of these guys back and say, all right, let's give them till week 3, just because we'll have that extended rest?
Yeah, I don't know if I personally would do it, but I mean, based on what we've seen from Mike McDaniel previously, right? He kind of does take that more precautionary approach. And,
Mhm.
again, when he's talking and giving us updates on some of these guys, he can sit here and butter us up real nice and make it sound like a guy we're going to see him in, a few days, week to week or whatever. And it's a couple weeks down the road. So, again, I'm just hoping we're, more worried about it than they are. And it's something that we don't have to worry about come Sunday when it is, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, a very good AFC team. We need Jalen Ramsey out there.
Sorry, I was just trying to pull up the depth chart. Yeah, so Mike McDaniel was also speaking about Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle. He said they're both practicing. Everything seems good there. Tyreek made a joke that he hasn't even seen Odell Beckham Jr. in the facility, and Dolphin fans absolutely loved that one. Just kind of chuckled about it and all that a good laugh. But no, he is out. So Josh, I'm just trying to go through other players here that are questionable. Jordan Boyer's listed as questionable, Javon Holland and Jalen Ramsey. Obviously, those will be changing as the injury report comes out. I'm just trying to stall a little bit, because the second I transition here, I know it's going to come out. But Josh, did you see that the Green Bay Packers have signed Chris Brooks to their practice squad? That was a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah, I did, and it comes right after the Dolphins, I think, reach an injury settlement with him. So I don't understand fully how those things work, but he couldn't be that hurt, right? If he's being landing on a practice squad and he's ready to bounce back, and that was a player that we were all really excited about. So good for him for landing on the practice squad of another team, but it does suck that the Dolphins had to watch him go play elsewhere, because he's been a stud for the last 2 years?
He's been an absolute stud, but I mean, at the same time, I
Preseason
think
stud, preseason
preseason
stud.
stud.
Sorry.
I think he actually had a big run in the Denver game, if I remember correctly. Or it's like a random, like, third quarter, like 7 minutes left. But Josh, even with that said, like, I was, kind of rooting for Chris. I was definitely rooting for Chris Brooks to make the roster. But looking at these 4 running backs this team has, Devon Achan, Raheem Mostert, Jalen Wright, and Jeff Wilson, very, very excited about this group. Just real quick in fantasy, who scores more points this weekend, you think?
Sorry, out of which two?
Raheem and Devon Achan.
I'm going to go with Achan. I'm going to continue to believe that he's going to be some kind of, third wide receiver and pick up all them PPR points. So I'm going to go with Achan, though it'll probably be pretty close.
Yeah, man. So if anyone hasn't done any fantasy drafts left or yet, or actually has fantasy drafts left, Jesus, I am so sorry. Raheem Mostert should be a guy you're looking at, especially early in the season. I still think he's going to have be a huge, huge part of this offense. But Josh, you're talking about different position groups, and that brings up an excellent, excellent topic. I think we have to accept that F doesn't stand for fullback in Mike McDaniel's offense. I think it's starting to stand for fun.
I do too, and I almost tweeted it stands for effing unicorn, because that's kind of what it sounds like, right?
Yes.
You got these different players that can play all over the formation, and I believe it's actually called what, a formation adjuster. Is that not what the F stands for, according to gurus on Twitter? But whatever you want to call it, it sounds like it's a fancy name for a guy that can play fullback, tight end, and in the slot. And you see Jonnu Smith listed as an F back behind Alec Ingold, and then Tanner Connor behind him. And it goes to, what we continue to hear about these guys, right? I don't know that Alec Ingold is that necessary unicorn like those other two. And, maybe isn't that necessary factor in the slot, but I'm coming to think of it, maybe he is. Maybe we will see that. So I think it's a neat thing. I think it's fun, and I'm intrigued to see the way the Dolphins utilize it, because you run hurry up in that. You don't know what you're throwing out there. Is it going to be two tight ends? Is it going to be two backs in the backfield? Are they going to line up in the slot? A lot of, variables there. And, Mike McDaniel's just sitting there like, yes, just devising all sorts of schemes up.
I wonder if it was always meant to be this way, in the sense of Alec Ingold walked so Jonnu Smith could go in motion. Just because, just thinking about how this offense has developed over the last couple of years, I think we can both. I love Alec Ingold. Not only he's an awesome person, I read his book. He's a great player. He's probably a top 3 fullback. But Josh, am I like being super outrageous when I say maybe the Dolphins haven't necessarily utilized the fullback to the best of their ability under the Mike McDaniel era?
Absolutely.
So it's one of those things where you wonder if, like, yes, there's the vision for the fullback. Miami's offense has never really been one that can get the 2 yards, especially on the ground. You wonder if, like, that idea of a fullback combined with the fact that Mike Daniel's doing all these motions, he has all the speed, eventually was going to get this spot where you have someone like Jonnu Smith, someone like Tanner Connor being that guy to go in motion and just be a difference maker and force the defense to think in these different ways. Because Alec Ingold is great, man. But I mean, the fact you were going out there in Buffalo in the snow, having him running routes with like a cast on his arm, man, like you can't get anything done with that.
Yeah, and again, I said unicorn, but it's almost like they're an athlete, right? We're gonna see Jonnu Smith coming in motion. We're gonna see some of the stuff they did there in Atlanta. I mean, it's not some revolutionary stuff. I just think we all kind of lost our mind when we saw the two running backs and then an F position as well in that depth chart. So definitely intrigued at the way they're going to utilize these guys, and it says a lot about what they think of Tanner Connor as well, right? I mean, we continue to say all offseason how Julian Hill kind of was that Durham Smythe clone, and now we got Tanner Connor and Jonnu Smith kind of following behind in Alec Ingold's footsteps again, but they're more of a tight end, so to speak. So many different options for the Dolphins to utilize and so many different weapons. Definitely excited to see the way it plays out.
See a lot of people on Dolphins Twitter smashing Jonnu Smith week 1 touchdown as one of their go-to bets, and I think that's super interesting as well. But Josh, if you had to lock in one guy, who would you say scoring a touchdown this weekend?
I mean, other than Achane, I think Jonnu Smith's a pretty good bet. I was just gonna say, if you have Kyle Pitts like me, like, and you're a clown that drafts him every year, Jonnu Smith's not a bad alternative because a lot of Dolphin fans out, a lot of leagues, unless there are Dolphin fans in it, no one really knows about him.
Don't be afraid of drafting Jonnu Smith, even though it projects him to only score, 4, 5, 6 points. I think he's going to have real opportunities in this offense to be some sort of a difference maker. Dude, I'm going to call my shot here, and I think when the Dolphins play the Jags, everyone's going to be focused on Tyreek Hill because, hey, he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. Jonnu Smith, he's going in motion, and we're talking about it here. I'm going to say it's a Jaylen Waddle game. I think this is going to be the return. Like, everyone's like, yeah, Jaylen Waddle had a down year last year. I mean, no, he was dealing with some injuries, working through some stuff. I think if Miami's really going to catch Jacksonville off guard, especially with these injuries they're dealing with on the defensive side, take advantage of that F position. I want every beat reporter talking about the F position nonstop so that by the time we get to game day, by the time you're talking the middle of the second quarter and it's 147 degrees out there and you have members of the secondary sprinting at the F position, dude, I'm excited as all hell to see Jaylen Waddle just run by everyone. That's my shot.
And I love that because I have Jaylen Waddle in so many leagues, and I keep seeing that Q next to him, and it gets me a little scared. But they're just being precautionary, right? They're just taking they want him out there at full percent. Was there any other things that really stuck out to you on this depth chart? I'm looking at it, and everything else kind of seemed pretty much what we come to expect.
The one thing I think that it's kind of cool is that Miami's offense seems to have waves. I don't think I did a good job of really talking about it with Dustin, but you do kind of see how they have these track teams. Like, we're going to go out there with Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and then we're going to throw in Malik Washington and Braxton Berrios together on a couple plays. It's been so interesting how McDaniel has used position groups, and entering year 3, having this time to refine the roster over and over. It does seem like it's plug in these guys, take out these other, and just kind of rotate them in nonstop. And you're not really leaning on, like, you got to have either Tyreek Hill or Jaylen Waddle out there. I think that's one of the coolest things about the Mike McDaniel era is that I kind of scratch my head a little bit and get a little concerned when I think it was early in the season. It might have even been the first touchdown of the year to Craycraft. It was 1st and 10 after I think it was either Tyreek or Waddle got a huge play. All of a sudden you have Craycraft and the second team in there and they still are making plays. So to me, that's just so cool how it's just a different change of pace completely. And hey man, we're homers. So shout out for Tua for being able to keep up with them.
Yeah, shout out to Tua. And another thing that I just wanted to, again, draw attention to that we talked about a bit, but you talked about change of pace. Devon Achane, again, back on in kick return. It has him and Braxton Berrios listed there. So are they going to get creative with something there? Time will tell.
Josh, how many snaps would you see someone like Jalen Wright playing week 1? 5%? 5 snaps total?
I thought you were gonna say 10 snaps. Like, I was gonna say that's probably a little high, right? But that's probably 8 to 10, somewhere in there, maybe. I think my favorite thing about Mike McDaniel is him saying, we're gonna try to give everybody touches and then ride the hot hand and see which guys, come to play today. So if he's telling the truth with that, we might see 3 here, 3 there, 3 there, and then he just, rides the hot hand. But 10 seems right around that. That'd be the betting line, wouldn't it? Are you gonna go over or under 10?
I think I'd go under 10.
Probably go. Yeah, under seems good.
What, over under 7?
That doesn't help. Over.
I think I'd go under. There. I think especially early in the year, everyone's gonna be like, oh yeah, that Raheem Mostert guy, he scored 18 touchdowns last year on the ground. Maybe we should pay attention to him. Josh, I wanted to ask you, how many captains do you think a professional football team should have?
Like 5?
5? And back in my day, we only had 5, but now there are 8 captains, Josh. Nearly a fifth of the roster. More than that is captains. Can you believe it?
I can't believe it. I can't believe it at all. Which of these really stood out to you? Did you name off the captains? I'm sorry, this thing froze up Matrix style. I was like,
oh no, dude. Here, I'll go through them real quick for you. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, cornerback Jalen Ramsey, wide receiver Tyreek Hill, linebacker David Long Jr., fullback Alec Ingold, left tackle Teron Armstead, defensive tackle Zach Sealer, and defensive tackle Calais Campbell. Josh, I'm going to just kind of kick this right to you. And does it kind of feel like we're taking crazy pills for Calais Campbell, who was an absolute stud last year? I think 9 sacks, double-digit tackles for a loss, really big part of that Atlanta Falcons defense. Are we taking crazy pills to just kind of just accept the fact that he's going to step in his 17th season and just fill in, and nothing's going to look different for taking over from a $100 million man like Christian Wilkins?
I mean, you admitted we're homers, so yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. They're probably even going to be better, right? They're going to somehow be better. I think it is funny how we see like the average age of the team going around. I think the Dolphins were like the highest, and it's because of some of these guys. So yeah, I guess that is something that we should fear and something we'll find out pretty quickly. But there's a reason he's been around for what, 100 years. I mean, he's been playing football since before the dinosaurs. So I trust that he's going to get it done. And I trust, what Anthony Weaver's devising up there. And you mentioned Zach Sealer, shout out to him, and David Long. Apparently it meant so much to him to be a captain. So I think this might have been his first. That's amazing. So I sit here and I say only 5, and I'm thinking about a 53-man roster, and it means so much to these guys. So I'm okay with them having, what was it, 8 team captains, and you had to love seeing Tua too, right? Because after all that, the narrative around him his first season and a half, it's just so nice to see a completely different guy up there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, looking back, that was the storyline. Like, rookie Tua wasn't a captain. Tua was never a captain under Brian Flores, and he's been a captain all the 3 years under Mike McDaniel. And it's just so interesting. Well, it's not really, but it's such a popularity contest, and it's got to be an ego boost because you see all the rookie quarterbacks getting it too. I've seen Caleb Williams get it. I've seen Jaden Daniels, I believe, is also a team captain. So it's just so silly, just that I keep going back to those, whether it's talking about the Jags game or just team captains. Like, it's refreshing to see how this team has changed. Josh, not to throw some shade and put some trouble in paradise, but Javon Holland was a team captain each of the last 2 years, and now entering a final year of his rookie contract, supposedly the next guy up to get an extension. Are you a little concerned to not see him be a team captain? Is there any funny business going on there?
See, I feel like my brain just blocked that out because, yes, I don't know if there's any funny business there, but me personally looking at that, hearing you say that, it makes me sick. And to think about, Christian Wilkins and how we're sitting here wondering if they filled that hole, I don't even want to think about trying to fill, that the quarterback, so to speak, the back line of defense, Javon Holland, when he's starting to look like such a promising young safety. So I'm a little bit queasy to hear that. It definitely, makes you wonder. And it would have been absolutely insulting, though, if Jordan Poyer would have been on that list, right? That would have made me, then I would have, maybe those two would have started a scrap or something. But all jokes aside, hopefully it doesn't mean anything. And maybe it's just leverage on the Dolphins' part, right? Maybe we don't know if you're going to be here. You're not committed. But that just sounds crazy. It's Javon Holland.
That's kind of the thing too. I mean, that's the one last deal I'm really hoping that the Dolphins make is contract extension for Javon Holland, because for all the negatives of the Vic Fangio era, I mean, Javon Holland was an absolute stud last year. Like, he continued his progression. We thought that he'd be that guy in the Fangio defense, and he absolutely lived up for it. Injuries obviously got in the way late in the season. Josh, I actually have the injury report here. I'm not going to completely walk on our toes with everything that happened. But do you have any final thoughts on team captains before I share this with you?
No, no, I don't think so. I just hope they all stay healthy, and it's nice that each unit sort of has that veteran leader, that coach on the field that can
Yeah.
help develop some of these young players. But I'm a little concerned now with this injury report. I've already been expecting that CVS receipt. How bad is it, Jake?
Would you guess over under 10?
I would go over 10.
Teron Armstead and Clyus Campbell, both of them did not practice due to vet rest. Jalen Phillips, Achilles vet rest, did not practice. And Ramsey, his injury is his hamstring. Quentin Bell, thumb. Aaron Brewer, hand. Kendall Fuller, vet rest. Benito Jones, knee. David Long, vet rest. Jordan Poyer, thumb dash vet rest. Anthony Walker, knee dash vet rest. And Malik Washington, quad, were all limited. And then Javon Holland was full with his ankle injury. So, Josh, anything really crazy stand out there? We knew about the Jordan Poyer thumb. There was a Twitter thread about how that wasn't supposed to be a big deal. I'm not worried about it. Aaron Brewer, 50% chance he's got a hand, 50% chance he's got a hook. It was a little spooky to see Kendall Fuller and David Long, but I mean, little sigh of relief to see some things like vet rest there.
Yeah, and I think that's what we need to remember. It's still Wednesday. It sounds like, a lot of these guys are getting vet rest days or trying to let them heal up, but it sounds like it's going to be another season, right? A long season with all these laundry list of, are they playing, are they not playing, these CVS type things. So I just hope a lot of these guys are out there playing because we need a lot of these starters if we want to stand a chance against the Jacksonville Jaguars, like you said. So nothing really stood out. I just hope that a lot of those questionables or vet rest turn into starters.
Something that kind of stands out, no Tyreek Hill, no Jaylen Waddle. Those guys are absolutely good to go. That's a nice bonus. I don't think there was anyone else on the offensive line except for Aaron Brewer, knock on wood. Josh, how many games do you think the Dolphins made it last year before suffering an injury on the offensive line? How many games did they complete with the opening day offensive line before an injury?
I mean, I don't remember. I was going to say two. Is two a
Two.
good
You
guess?
absolutely nailed it. Yep. Yep. The injuries started week 3, and then it was all downhill from there. Josh, do you know how many games the Dolphins started and ended a game with the same offensive line?
Two?
Oh my god, dude, that would be absolutely horrifying. The thing is, they actually had a little run in the middle there. It was kind of a bummer when you didn't have Connor Williams. Isaiah Wynn gets out of the lineup. But they also had it a fully healthy, quote unquote, lineup for weeks 5, 6, 11, 16, and 18. So when you consider those 7 games that the Miami Dolphins had 5 offensive linemen, what do you think the record was?
Undefeated.
6-1. The
I
only
don't.
game they lost was to the Buffalo
That's
Bills week
close.
18. Dude, you were really close, and it just kind of speaks to like the injury luck the Dolphins were dealing with last year, man. It's absolutely frustrating as all hell. But hopefully, Aaron Brewer, this early season hand injury is the only thing we have to worry about, dude. Because I just still go back to that Buffalo game, talking about it being like this is the first time that Miami's offensive line is kind of sticking together. And the Bills are walking out of the field with the same offensive line for the 17th straight week, and a total anomaly. So it's just crazy.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I just hate that Aaron Brewer hasn't been, present, I guess, as much as at least that we've heard, right? I mean, I want to
Right.
know that they have some rapport together because we're not going to see it until live action if they get thrown out there, if he goes on Sunday. So a lot of questions, man, and I think that's what's so exciting, but also a little bit scary about this first week because you know what's going to happen if for some reason I don't even want to speak it into existence, but we have a lot mentally riding on this week 1 game. A lot of us as fans.
If you want to get involved, I would love to hear from you guys, our listeners. If you'd want to send us your keys to the game, you can email us at AnotherDolphinsPodcast at gmail.com. If you're a podcast listener and you'd love to watch the show on YouTube, we could be found on the 560 WQAM YouTube channel. Josh put together this outstanding background where we got this Zubaz vibe going on. So shout out Josh for that one. Just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of our programming schedule throughout the season, we are going to try our darnest throughout the regular week to get you guys, what, Josh, 3 to 4 podcasts, something like that, some instant reaction Sunday nights. We're going to try to get Kat going on some keys to the games every Friday. Maybe a couple clips, like I just had Dustin Godin. Actually, tomorrow on this feed, you'll hear from Gus Loge, who actually is the editor for, let me see here, Big Cat Country at SB Nation to do a little behind enemy lines. So we're going to try to give you guys a lot of different opinions, a lot of different takes. And please, if you would like to hear from anyone on this podcast feed, AnotherDolphinsPodcast at gmail.com. And it's always nice because I can go on these huge rants and just say, Josh, what did I just miss? Did I miss anything there?
I think you nailed it. And I just want to give you a shout out because I have 3 kids, a lot of things going on with school starting, and you just been grinding. So shout out to you, man, for being able to take time and to do some of those, behind enemy lines and things that we're hoping to bring our fans, because let's be honest, that's some of the stuff that I think a lot of the podcasts need to touch on better, to who the Dolphins have to play, key matchups and things like that. So shout out to you, man. Stoked for what the season comes, because let's be honest, this is the best year that we've seen on paper for a long, long time.
And we're going to have to really pick up the pace quickly with that Thursday night game in Buffalo. And Josh, I'm just going to even throw it out here so we can kind of just get it in mind. I'm going to North Carolina next week, so I'm actually going to fly on game day. I'm going to be with some buddies I haven't seen in a while, probably in a Chili's wearing my Jay Cutler jersey, watching that game. I should be good, hopefully, to put together a few sentences for some post-game reaction to maybe see the Dolphins pull out a win against the Buffalo Bills. But yeah, that'll be something to keep in mind. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's so much fun. I'm so happy football season is back. That is all the time we have today on Another Dolphins podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us. We will talk to you soon. But until then, fins up.
Fins up.
Fins up.